Hello, and welcome to the Center for Healing podcast. I'm Melissa Hiemann. I'm the co-founder of the Center for Healing, and we're here to explore the complexities of trauma, healing, and processing human emotions. And today we're specifically diving into a often misunderstood emotion, which is anger. So specifically, we're looking at what happens when we suppress anger or not express our anger in healthy ways. And this often happens because for some reason we made a decision, perhaps in childhood, that it wasn't safe to express our anger, or we weren't shown how to express anger in a healthy way, or someone had explosive anger in our childhood or in our client's childhood, and that turned out to be the reason why the anger is repressed, because they decided, well, I don't want to be like that bad, angry, abusive, perhaps, person. And that's totally understandable. And we orphan that part. We want to break off that part that is totally natural, because we want to be a good person, right? And we don't want to hurt others. And so I think for many people, anger has been labeled as bad or as dangerous. Maybe you grew up in a household where explosive anger caused chaos, or perhaps any expression of anger was met with punishment or dismissal. And over time, you might have learned to disconnect from your anger entirely to feel safe or to avoid being bad, like the person that scared you. But what you have to know is that suppressing anger comes at a cost. And today we'll talk about how this impacts our boundaries, our relationships, and even our sense of self. So let's start by understanding why anger gets such a bad reputation. So anger is a natural and healthy emotion. It actually arises to protect us, to signal that something isn't right, or that a boundary has been crossed. But for many children, expressing anger isn't or wasn't an option. So let me paint a picture here to give you an example. Imagine a household where one parent's explosive anger dominates the environment. As a child, witnessing this can feel terrifying. You might have thought, I never want to be like them. So you bury your own anger to avoid associating yourself with that chaos or with being like that person. For me personally, I actually had that experience where my parents separated when I was very young, and the people that each of my parents got with actually had a lot of anger issues. They were both emotionally immature, I would say narcissistic, and they both had many addictions. And so naturally, me witnessing that and not wanting to be like them, not liking them, instead of looking at them as a whole person, I kind of thought, well, that part of them isn't good, so I'm not going to express that part. I'm not going to be an angry person. And I repressed that very helpful emotion. And what happened was, because of that, and I'll dive into this a bit more later, I ended up myself having addictions, but also there was a lot of people pleasing happening. I would endure things that I shouldn't have endured, and I had issues with boundaries in many ways. Alternatively, you might have grown up in a home where anger wasn't allowed at all. That was frowned upon as a collective, as a family. Maybe there was generational suppression of anger from both sides. And if you express even a hint of frustration, you were scolded, shamed, or told to stop being so dramatic. And over time, you internalize the message anger is dangerous, anger is wrong, anger makes me unlovable and not accepted in my family. And us wanting to be accepted in our family actually really shapes our personality if we're unconscious about it, which we often are. Ages 0 to 7, we're naturally very open. Our critical part of our brain has not formed yet. So we will conform to even an unhealthy and toxic family situation for our safety, for our survival. We will actually take on that collective toxicity. And because the alternative is that our family boots us out and potentially we die. And this comes back to our animalistic behavior of survival. So, and I just want to make a side note, often the black sheep of the family, the one that calls it out, the black sheep of the family is the one that calls it out, is the one that's conscious about it and not agreeing with it. And everyone tends to turn on that person because they are bubbling up and bringing up and making everyone face this toxicity in the family, and the family will automatically want to outcast that person. But I know a lot of you that are listening to this that are in this industry, you were perhaps that person, and that's why you got so interested with human behavior and spirituality and therapy. And so we're the ones being conscious and changing the world as well. So it's not the easiest role in the family, but someone's got to do it, and here we are. So if we express anger in our family dynamic and it makes us unlovable, or it makes us feel ashamed, then what happens next? We obviously will suppress that part of ourselves and for survival. And we learn to keep the peace, even at the expense of our own needs, right? We become hyper-focused on being good, whether that's good girl, good boy, whatever that happens to be. And to be the good girl or the good boy or the good person, it often means prioritizing others over ourselves. And this is where we can lose ourselves. So while the strategy may have helped you survive childhood, it doesn't often serve you as an adult, Suppressed anger doesn't disappear. It's still suppressed. It's still there. And it's still inside you looking for an outlet. And when we don't allow ourselves to express anger outwardly, it often turns inward, right? And so it can manifest as self-criticism, shame, or even physical symptoms like chronic fatigue, pain, digestive issues very often. And our inner self-talk can become, because we have so much suppressed anger, or even rage sometimes, we can get things like high blood pressure. The pressure can cause migraines and things like that. So I've seen that in cases where, over the years I've helped clients to slowly start to express anger, slowly start to say no. And that's the other thing, is that it can cause poor boundaries, right? Because anger is closely tied to our ability to say no, or to say that's not okay, right? Because again, we don't want to stand up in our power and show anger. It can often be passive aggressive as well. But without access to that anger, we struggle to protect ourselves. It is a protection emotion, right? And again, we're more likely in our relationships to people please, avoid conflict, and overextend ourselves to maintain harmony or to make others happy over ourselves. What does that cause? Resentment. It causes us to be in victimhood because all of a sudden we've given all our power to whoever we're people pleasing with. And if they're not happy with that, it causes internal conflict. And the thing about avoiding conflict is that there's healthy conflict, and a lot of us weren't shown healthy conflict growing up. I wasn't anyway. So I associated conflict with big fights, blowouts, domestic violence, abuse, whereas there is actually healthy conflict where we can talk things out and we can actually deepen relationships and we can get to the other side of that. And I feel so blessed in a sense that like I'm with a partner that will do healthy conflict with me in front of my son. And I feel like the more of us that do that, we're going to change a whole generation of children. And they will become adults and be together in a society, together interacting. So learning healthy conflict is important, but to have healthy conflict, we can't avoid the conflict, right? And we need to express our anger in healthy ways. And if I bottle up our anger for 30, 40 years, it's going to be hard to express it in a healthy way, isn't it? Right? And the irony is that while we suppress anger to avoid being bad, the lack of boundaries often leads to, again, like I said, resentment and burnout, feeling disconnected from our true selves, feeling disconnected from others. Walls get built up. We keep pushing everything under a rug, and it creates distance. Even when we're sitting next to someone, it creates a vast distance energetically between us. So obviously over time, that's going to damage relationships. As the unresolved anger, like the energy has to go somewhere, and it often leaks out in passive aggressive comments, withdrawal, sudden outbursts, the very things that we were trying to avoid by suppressing it, right? So there's good news here. It's not all doom and gloom. We can heal this anger. We can process this suppressed anger. We can digest it. So reconnecting with this part of yourself is a process of relearning and reframing and being conscious of, becoming aware of that anger isn't dangerous or bad, right? In and of itself. It's a protection emotion, and it's emotion that we all have, and we all have the right to express, and in a way that can be kind to everyone involved. So number one is acknowledge and validate your anger, right? Start becoming aware when you are noticing that maybe some anger is arising. For some of us, we might be really good at pushing it down and pushing it away. The key to this, if you're not quite good at sitting in your body, if you have clients that are finding it difficult to even connect with their body and start to connect with the emotions, you'll get an indicator from the thoughts. One picture that I like to paint, particularly to my root cause therapy certification students, is that imagine there's a tree, and the roots are our conditioning, traumas, experiences, environment, nourishment. And then you go up to the trunk, and the trunk is our actions, our behaviors, our pathways. And then the leaves on the end of the branches, they're often our thoughts. So you can see when there's issues with the root system, with the soil, with the nourishment, if the leaves are browning, right? Or they're dying, or there's some kind of disease happening there. You can often see from the leaves. And so when you are finding it hard, or clients are finding it hard to connect with the emotions, if you can just start becoming aware of the thoughts and see, are they a bit angry? Are the thoughts a little bit judgmental, or like you feel like saying something but you can't, and you're like, you're like in this fight mode. Your nervous system is in this fight, defensive or angry mode. You'll notice that, and then when you're ready, you can slowly start to connect with the anger, but not before you're ready, because there might be a lot suppressed there. And if you need like space and help to start to process it, find a therapist, find a practitioner. I 100% believe that investing in yourself it pays back a million times. Honestly, it will change your life. So I'll put our practitioner directory in the show notes. It's the centerforhealing.com/practitioner-directory. And we have practitioners all over the world, and they can create that relational safe space for you to start to express and feel that anger. So when you are ready to start feeling in your body, it might not come up as obviously as you think. It might be a tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat when you haven't like expressed what you want to say. Your hands might start to tighten up in like a punching position. Not that you're going to punch anyone, but just noticing if there's like tension in your arms and your shoulders. You're ready, that fight muscles are activated. Maybe there's a wave of irritation. Maybe you're very irritable, right? Again, that's feedback that you're not filling up your cup, that you're not asking for what you need, that you are putting everyone else first. And I'm a mother. I understand that sometimes we have to do that with children, but just again, it's the noticing, right? And we're going to start to validate it. So normally when we feel anger, I'm guessing that perhaps we will be going, oh, I'm feeling angry. I shouldn't be feeling angry. How can I not feel this anger? It's bad that I'm feeling this anger. I should be ashamed of this anger, or something along those lines where you're not feeling like it's okay for you to have and experience that emotion because of those associations that I talked about earlier. And all you need to say to yourself is, it's okay to feel this way. Anger is a normal and relevant and important emotion. It's okay. I'm allowed to feel this anger. If you're finding it hard to do that, just imagine maybe your angry teenager, or a time in the past where you did, where you did express the anger and it wasn't accepted. This is a chance to reparent, and just imagine, just for a moment, you just holding that younger version of you and going, it's okay. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to feel this. It's very normal and natural to feel this. And so this is going to be helpful for you if you do reflect on your childhood a little bit and just asking a few key questions of why this suppression is happening. Were you allowed to express anger? What messages did you receive about anger from your caregivers? Because understanding the roots of your suppression can help you see this pattern was a learnt response, not a reflection of your worth. And it's not a reflection of human nature to be told that you can't feel anger. Or were you like me and you saw people were angry and decided you didn't want to express that because you don't want to be like them, right? So the next one is really, the next step is looking at anger as a signal to a boundary violation, right? So starting to practice small acts of boundary setting, just small ones to start with, like saying no to something that you don't want to do. We've all done that where we say, yes, we'll do it. And internally, like, I don't want to do this. Those are the moments where you can start to practice, and it's going to be scary. Your voice might quiver. Your nervous system might start to become dysregulated. But the more you practice it, the more that you will start to trust yourself with it and know that the right people will respect that and respect your honesty and not be your friend because you say no once, or not love you. You're not a child anymore. You're an adult now, right? So if saying no to someone causes them to blow up or, have a very bad reaction, well, again, they're not your people because they're not loving and accepting of just healthy boundaries. And B, you have to also remember that if you've been a certain way in their movie, if you've been a certain character that always says yes, maybe you're in the workplace, everyone gives their extra work to you because you always say yes. The moment you say no, you've just interrupted their perception of who you are in their mind and what they can get from you. And I'm not saying they're bad. It's just you've almost trained them that you're like that, right? So it's not their fault, it's not your fault, but that might happen. And again, you're not a child that's not going to be able to survive or eat, right? You have to remind yourself, because when we suppress emotions in our childhood, when we get triggered, we regress back to being a child, and we accidentally project that these people around us are our parents and our only way to survive, whether it's bosses or family members, but we're an adult now, or when we're in a romantic relationship, or our children, right? So we have to like be really aware of that. It could be just speaking up when something bothers you, where normally you would say nothing and just smile, right? I was going to say hand up. I know we're in a podcast here, but I know I wore masks. I smiled when internally I was angry and wanted to say something, because I was just, the conditioning and the way that I survived was to do that, right? That's like keeping the peace. And so just practicing going, well, I don't agree with that, or that makes me a bit upset that you said that, or why would you say something like that? Just little things like that. So just noticing how it feels when you do that, just baby steps with that, maybe doing it with someone that you feel safe with, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a healer, whether it's a friend, and go, hey, I'm working on my boundaries. Can we do a bit of role playing, or, can we make it a bit fun, make it a game where, when I do have the courage to say no to something or make a joke about it, we'll be like, yes, that's awesome. I know I did that with Ryan, where he was very people pleasing and things like that. And as our relationship progressed, I would celebrate when he said no. Yes, did it disturb my reality of what I could expect from him? Absolutely. But I was so happy for him as well. And over time, he's been able to be more certain with his no, more neutral with his no, more expressive and showing anger. And that's reduced his anxiety, because when we have a lot of suppressed anger and we don't express it out into the world, we internalize it, and we end up often yelling at ourselves and getting angry at ourselves internally. And what happens when you are continually angry with someone, whether it's a child or an adult, and you continually put them down and yell at them? They're either going to get depressed or anxious, right? And so that's why it's important to start letting it out, so we're not always internalizing. And I'm not saying yelling at people and taking it out on everyone around you, right? Because there's safe ways for outlets of your anger. There's safer ways. There's ways that are kind and compassionate and, more trauma informed. And we don't want to become the aggressors. We don't want to become the abusive people. So we can do it ourselves. We can do it through journaling. That's one of my favorite methods of journaling. Is if I'm feeling angry or frustrated or ashamed or something, I'll just get my journal, and it's not pretty. The writing is horrible, but I'm just like, this, blah, blah, blah. All the yucky words that are in my head, I just get them out, and I keep writing and writing and writing. And by the end, I've processed whatever had been triggered, and some emotions have released, and often some wisdom drops in. So I invite you to do that. Think physical things to get that energy out is like punching a pillow, going for a run. When we're fight and flight, one of the best things to do is to honor that energy and move. Again, speaking to someone that you trust about it, expressing it, but when you do that, please don't just call a friend and just dump on them. Ask people, do you have the capacity and space to hear about what I'm angry about right now? Right? Do you have the capacity and space for me to dump on you today? And and a really good friend might be like, not today, but I'll let you know how I'm feeling tomorrow, because maybe they're having a hard day. Like, let's honor people's capacity as well. The goal, and breath work is brilliant. Anything that moves it through. Doing somatic exercises and things like that can be really helpful. So the goal is just to not suppress the anger more, but to release it in ways that don't harm yourself or others, right? Because I had substance abuse issues growing up as well because I was trying to suppress so many emotions. And let me tell you, when you are feeling really angry and you drink a bottle of red wine to try and um, feel better, you often will unleash text messages to people, or what you've done is you just suppressed it more often than not. And then you just suppressed more. And then the next day you still have to deal with it, right? Um, so I would say, again, with the reframing of it, it's seeing anger as a protective ally. So begin seeing anger as a friend, as a part of every one of us, as a part that wants to protect you and empower you. When anger shows up, you ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What boundary needs to be set? Or what need isn't being met? Or is there something that I need to change? All right. So basically, with anger, when understood and expressed in a healthy way, it is one of our greatest allies. It helps us sets boundaries. It helps us set boundaries. It helps us advocate for ourselves. It helps us advocate for our children. It helps us stay connected to our true values and our standards. As you do healing work, your standards raise up, and it's okay to protect those. It's good. So if you've spent years suppressing like anger or rage as part of yourself, remember, it's never too late to connect. Let's not shame ourselves. Let's start processing it healthily. And as this bucket that has been filled with all the suppression over the years starts to go down, now when you go forward, you'll have a bigger bucket, a bigger container to actually allow yourself to feel the smaller amount of anger, because you've, emptied a lot of the repressed anger. So it's easier to deal with, and it's in smaller amounts. So you don't have to be scared of the outburst. You don't have to be worried about taking it out on other people, in a way. So I hope you got something from that, and that it helps you to stop demonizing this emotion, to start loving this emotion and all of our emotions, of course, and the parts of ourselves that we lost along the journey that we need to pick up again and give a big hug and call it back in, so we can become healthier and more whole people. So thank you again for joining me today in this journey about suppressed anger and the impact. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you think might benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights in trauma, healing, and emotional well-being. I would love it if you left a 5-star review as well. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember that your emotions are valid and your healing is absolutely possible. It's never too late to have a good childhood. Until next time, take good care. Bye-bye.